thank you for joining LAMAC's live streaming series. This will be a 45-minute session, including a Q&A at the end. So we invite you to send us your questions via Zoom, and we can dedicate some time at the end to answer as many as we can. I also wanted to let you know that this session is being recorded, and you will be able to access the full video on our website. You can also access previous seminars and presentations by going to lamac.org. That's O-R-G. Finally, I would like to remind you that in case any of us disconnects for any reason, we will go over some of your questions until we get that person connected again. And I see that we already have almost 150 people connected. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Henry Martinez, LAMAC's president of the board, and our guest of honor, Bruce Turkel, brand expert and the author of the book, All About Them. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Monica. Great to be here. And Bruce, thanks so much for joining us. I look forward to chatting with you.
It's my honor. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, and Bruce is beyond all about us or all about them. Bruce is a prolific author, speaker, and a brand and marketing expert. So if you haven't heard from Bruce, look him up. He's got a great variety of different interesting tools, articles, blogs, books, etc. that I think you'll find very, very compelling. So, Bruce, why don't we start with, one of the things you focused on throughout your career is on brand building. It's a critically important element here, but it seems to me that over the recent few years, let's call it, and particularly with the advent of this data-driven marketing focus, it's lost its focus. It's lost its the focus on the brand building in the long term, and it's gone even shorter. I mean, we saw the movement towards quarterly results being so critical, so important, and organizations and marketers having to focus on that basis. And I think with the advent of data-driven marketing, seems to me like it's moved even more narrowly from the perspective of the expectation of the results. So now it's like, kind of a weekly thing. So somewhere along the line, it seems to me that the importance and the impact, or the recognition of the impact of long-term brand value building has been lost. Do you agree or you disagree with that? And what's your view?
So I agree 100%. Usually in these sort of environments, I'm trying to explain to the person I'm talking to why this has happened. You just set the case up beautifully. You just set it up perfectly. The dependence on metrics, on what are called hard facts, have somehow diminished our reliance and understanding of the softer or the squishier parts of what we do. And because we can see minute by minute metrics, and we can do A/B testing, and we're checking all the time, did this get people to move forward? Did that get people to move forward? We forget the bigger implications of their emotional and psychological responses. When online marketing became so important, you started to hear people talk about, if there's no click-through, then the marketing did not work. And I would just bring up, that brand advertising on television, brand advertising on billboards still remained enormously important to get ideas across. But because it wasn't immediately trackable, people didn't see the value. Now, Henry, something has changed drastically. Since March 15th, all of a sudden, the importance of brands has become drastically more significant. And the reason is because in uncertain times, people, consumers, look for certainty. And right now, let's face it, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going to happen. It was, of course, coronavirus and COVID, and now in this country, in the US, there's also the political situation, the turmoil in the streets. All of that combines to have people, consumers, our customers, our clients, looking for certainty. And brand value is certainty.
I was going to ask you about that specifically, and asking you if it was time for a return towards brand building and more cognizant messaging. So I think you've addressed that in the context of the first question, but I think it's an incredibly powerful point that in order to survive for the longer term, it's critical to focus both on the brand and the messaging.
Yeah, and by the way, it's no surprise that someone wrote a book called Building Brand Value, Construyendo Valor de Marcas, would be all about the importance of brand building. But let's look at it at a very simplistic point of view using your metrics point earlier. Let's say you want to buy a pair of jeans. I haven't done this research recently. Y'all can do it if you want, but the numbers make sense. If you go on eBay to buy a pair of jeans, and you write jeans, how many pair of jeans are going to show up? 12 million? 10 million? Then you put in men's jeans, then you put in your size, and the number continues to drop. Then you say you want a specific styling feature. You want them to be tight or loose or whatever, and maybe the number drops further. But then you put in a brand name and the number drops significantly because of those 12 million pair of jeans in general. There may be a couple 100,000 opportunities to buy Levi's or Seven for All Mankind or Acne or whatever brand it is that you like. But here's the interesting thing. Even though the number of choices drops, the opportunity for that brand to sell goes up exponentially because they don't care which pair you buy if you buy the pair that has their name on the back. So all of a sudden, that brand value, that brand becomes the way the consumer deals with metrics. So while we on the other side of the screen are looking at metrics from an evaluative point of view, from a judgmental point of view, the consumer is looking at those metrics to say, I can't deal with all of this, but I can deal with this. So once again, all the things that you pointed out earlier are causing marketers to say brands don't matter, actually prove that brands matter today more than ever.
Very interesting. Yeah, it can be very overwhelming. Bruce, one very recent blog, and I must admit, I am a follower of your weekly blog, and I look forward to it each and every week.
Thank you.
But you wrote about selling the dream. Can you expand on that a little bit, and for our audience, explain what you mean about selling the dream?
Sure. Actually, I love doing that because I get to talk about my father. In 2 days, it'll be the 9th anniversary of my dad's passing. So it's very nice for me to get to talk about him because he was my hero and he was a brilliant, brilliant man. My dad was a builder. He built the first condominiums in the United States, and he built the first office condominiums anywhere in the world. When I was a little kid, his construction projects used to be near my elementary school. So after school, I would often walk over to my dad's construction site. And when I was there, he would walk me around and he would show me the blueprints. And then he would show me where the elevators would go, where the bathrooms would go, where the stairs would go. And one of the things that he always tried to do was sell the units in the building as early as possible in the cycle of construction. So I was a little kid. I didn't know business, but I always assumed that the reason my dad wanted to sell the units early was to get money. I mean, that's why you're in business. And of course that was true, but my father said the real reason for selling during construction and not after completion was that he could sell the dream. I didn't know what that meant. My dad explained. He said, look, right now, if a couple comes here and they're interested in a condo, I'm going to do what I just did with you. I'm going to show them the blueprint. I'm going to walk them through the construction site. I'm going to show them where their apartment is going to go. I'm going to show them the view that they're going to have to the park or to the beach. I'm going to show them where they park, where the tennis courts are. I'm going to show them where their grandchildren are going to sleep when they stay over. He says, but after the apartment is done, then when I walk them into the kitchen, maybe it has a green countertop and the people want gold. Or maybe I put in gold countertops and the people want white. He said some people want shag rugs. Some people want tile. Some people insist on a bathtub. Other people don't want bathtubs because they can't step over the rim. No matter what I build, they're going to want something different. He says, but right now, what I'm showing them is where their children, their grandchildren are going to stay over. He says that's selling the dream. And the dream is worth a whole lot more money than reality. And you know it's true because you've bought things. I know the kind of things you love. So you've bought a great bicycle or an awesome sports car or a new cigar. And then when you had it, it wasn't nearly as good as what you expected it to be. Selling the dream is the way we get consumers emotionally invested in what we're doing. By the way, there's no metrics there. There's no counts there. It's all right here. It's all emotion. It's what video and motion and drama and all of those things, music and sound, all of those things can do to get people excited about what it is we're selling if we sell the dream.
It's a wonderful, wonderful story, and makes it real clear and understandable, and something that people can certainly relate to. I don't know if this next topic is one that stays within the realm of emotion. Maybe you can expand on it, but in one of your books, All About Them, you talk about the importance of customer relations. Can you expand on that a little bit? Is that more? Does that become a little more mathematical in a sense, or is that still on the emotional level, or is there a connection between the two?
Think about the ability of your customers, your consumers, to find what it is you sell. I'm not talking about the specific thing you sell. I'm talking about the product or service, the function that it provides. It used to be they could only look in your immediate competitive trade area, wherever your store, your office, your push cart, your food truck, whatever it was, they could only buy from you right there. But today, because we all have access to the internet, because we all have these magical devices that give us access to everything, your customer is no longer your customer. They are the world's customer. They can go anywhere. And let's face it, whatever it is you sell is good, but there's other people selling good stuff as well. And so if you depend solely on metrics, on price, on function, on size, on ability, you're really selling a genericized product. You're saying that my product is just as good as everybody else's, which is not a really good competitive edge, not a really good place to be if you want to thrive. But the one thing that you can own that your competition cannot is your customer relationships. It's your ability to sell who you are, not what you do. And more importantly, your ability to sell who you are vis-a-vis who your customer is. I always say it, good brands make you feel good, right? You buy something new, look at my new phone, look at my new outfit, look at my new watch, and you feel good about it. But great brands make you feel good about yourself. And part of the way that we do that is to provide a level of customer service that our customers feel good about themselves for doing business with us. It's not simply that they get what they want or need. Again, they can get that anywhere. And it's not simply that they get what they want or need with a smile or with a nice interaction. They can get that in some places. It's where they get what they want or they need. And at the end of the engagement, at the end of the interaction, they feel good about themselves. They did the right thing. It's about relationships. In a time of uncertainty, as I said, people search for certainty, and relationships are part of that. Henry, let's be intimate here. You and I have known each other a long time. We've worked with each other in a lot of different guises. We have a relationship. We've done a lot of good things together. And dare I say it, we've probably had disagreements or things that didn't go so well in things we've done together. But because we have a relationship, you know that I'll show up and do the job. I know that you'll be prepared and you'll do what you're supposed to do. We are able to get more done because we have a relationship. We've each been each other's customer in an odd way, and we have built customer relations. Our relationship together allows us to do better things and allows us to feel good about ourselves. All of us need to be able to do that with the people that give us money.
That strikes me as the critical element of what marketers are thinking about all the time. And based on what you just said, I think that the importance of that customer relation enables not only the focus on gaining market share, which is, of course, a great priority for a marketer, but another great priority is the aspect of price point, right? And enabling you to secure an improved price point vis-a-vis your competition, because that's where you're going to win: market share and pricing advantage. So somehow it seems to me like what you're talking about in terms of the customer relations, links directly into that.
Absolutely. By the way, it also, what we talked about a minute ago, selling the dream. Selling the dream allows you to sell for more because you're not selling the actual, you're selling the imaginative. Customer service, customer relationships allows you to sell for more because you're not simply selling the function of what you do, you're selling who you are and what that comes with. It allows you to lower your cost of acquisition because you are not simply acquiring customers based on the cost of sales. It allows you to increase the value of retention. Let's face it, acquisition is expensive. Market share, you need acquisition to grow market share, but you need retention to protect market share. And retention comes directly from customer service. People don't think about it that way. They think it comes out of function. But think about it this way. If your product or your service is not functional, if it doesn't do the job, you're not in business. I'm not going to buy a product that doesn't do what it's supposed to do. Think automobiles. Automobiles get you from point A to point B. Theoretically, that's all they do. If in fact your automobile does not get me from point A to point B, I'm not buying it. I think we'd all agree on that. We're not going to buy a car that doesn't start or doesn't run. However, just because your product does get me from point A to point B doesn't mean I'm going to buy it either, because every other one out there gets me from point A to point B. So being good functionally, being good at what you do is cost of entry. It's like going to Vegas and going to the poker table. If you don't ante up, if you don't put the money in the pot, they don't let you play. But just because you do ante up, just because you do put money in the pot, doesn't mean they let you play either. I'm sorry, you get to play. It doesn't mean they let you win. You still have to know how to play. Well, it's the same with what all of us do. Being able to do your job is cost of entry. If you can't do it, you're not in business. But just because you can do it doesn't mean you're in business either. That's where brand building, selling the dream, and establishing more than customer service, but customer relationships adds to acquisition and adds to retention and adds to price point.
Excellent. And in fact, you talked about the many years we've had in working on different initiatives and projects together. It's actually 25, believe it or not, Bruce. I think one of the things where we've had some disagreements and different things, and that's great, because I think that stimulates improved thinking and creativity. But one of the things that we always aligned on was the importance of talent, the importance of bringing people together, the importance of having the smartest people in the room that you can have, and people that have creativity and passion for pulling things together. So this is something that, I've seen you focus on before, and it's something that throughout the years, you've invited me to events from people who are focused on a particular area and have very insightful conversations. I know you've launched a recent initiative that focuses on, I think you call it the Mastermind Masterclass, something like that. Can you tell us about that initiative, what it's about, what you're trying to accomplish with that?
Sure. I've been listening to Neil Peart's book, Traveling Songs. I'm sorry. Neil Peart was the drummer for Rush. He passed away a year ago. And in it, he starts talking about all these different musicians that he loves. And most of them are classic rock musicians, classic jazz musicians. But at some point, he talks about why he loves Madonna. Now, if you listen to Rush music and you listen to Madonna, there's an enormous gulf between those two. And he talks about how he doesn't really like pop music, yet he loves Madonna. And then he explains why. He says one of the things that Madonna did, she was very talented, of course. He said, but she always hired the best people. He said the best mixers, the best musicians, the best arrangers, the best singers, the best choreographers, every bit of what she did used the best people, all of whom made her better. It's a sense of collaboration that improved her brand and her product, but it was because of all of the contribution of all of these other people. So now we are all in this really weird situation where, because of coronavirus, because of what's going on in our different countries, we're not sure of what's going to happen. And as I said, in uncertain times, people need certainty. How do we find certainty? And the way to find it is to work with people who understand best practices in their own areas. So people who have skill sets, expertise, and contact lists, and can share those with one another. And so what I've done is I've put together a mastermind where we're going to have a group of people who are going to participate on a weekly basis, talking about what it is they're trying to accomplish. And then the group together will help them look at ways they can do what they're doing better. I mentioned to you that my dad was a builder, so he was in the real estate business. He was always my real estate consultant, so to speak. But I also told you that he passed away 9 years ago. I needed to sell a piece of property that I had. I didn't have my father to ask, but I'm in a mastermind group. One of the guys in the group is a very, very successful real estate investor. So I called him and I said, hey, can you help me through this process? And he did. He told me what to do, what not to do, what to sign, what not to sign. He gave me a lot of good ideas. He also beat me up. He told me what I had done that was stupid and how I needed to fix these things. But he did one more thing, because he said to me, okay, I want you to go back to the potential buyer and I want you to tell them these things. Doesn't matter what they were at the moment, but I was very uncomfortable about doing it, right? I don't want to be a bad guy. I don't want to argue with them. But he said, you need to do that. You need to do these couple things when you go back to make the best deal possible. And after you do it, he said, I want you to call me and tell me what happened. So now I'm at the table. We're doing the negotiation. It's time for me to put up or shut up. I don't want to do it, but I knew that worse than not doing it was having to pick up the phone afterwards, call my buddy and say, yeah, I couldn't do it. I knew I had to do it because I was going to have to report back to him. The word for that is accountability. And mastermind groups give you accountability. We're going to all have to do some things that we're going to find uncomfortable. We need to pivot our lives. We need to change our revenue streams. We need to change the way we do business. We're not going to be so comfortable about that. But in my mastermind group, you will have a group of people who have your back. You will have a group of people who are going to help you figure out what to do and then hold you to actually doing it. If you're interested, all you need to do is go to the website. It's Together with Turkel. I'm Turkel, so that's easy. Togetherwithturkel.com. You'll see two programs, the Mastermind, which is what I just told you about, and the Master Class, which is a series of 9 presentations on the different skill sets we all need to move forward. You can do one, you can do both, you can do either, or you can do both. I welcome you either way. I've kept it very inexpensive because I want everyone to be able to participate, because that's how I give back, by being able to help. So it's Together with Turkel. Henry, I really appreciate you letting me share that and giving me the opportunity to help people. Thank you.
No, I think it's a great initiative, and like I said, something that I've we've always seen eye to eye on is the importance of a great team and bringing the right people together. So I think it's awesome that you're doing that. So speaking sort of from that a little bit, and you mentioned about the changing world and that being part of the reason why you developed Mastermind. Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, I know you've said it already, right? The world is changing. The world has changed. So what are the implications for a marketer in the context of the environment that we face and the new world order as we move forward here?
That's a great question, because most of us who are trained marketers think that our job is to take the product or the service and then package it to sell it to consumers. And so most of us take our cues from our clients. We take our cues from the product or service. But the truly successful marketer takes their cues from the consumer. After all, If we as marketers don't have clients, we're not in business. But if our clients, as manufacturers, as distributors, as retailers, as travel and leisure, whatever it is they're selling, if they don't have customers, they're not in business. So it makes sense that as marketers, we need not to be the representative of our clients, even though they're the ones who pay us. We need to be the representatives of the consumers, because the consumers are the ones who pay our clients. And we exist as service to our clients. And we provide that service by understanding and representing the consumer. So as the world changes, looking at product is not where the opportunity is. It's looking at consumers. What are consumers going to do short term, medium term, and long term with their purchasing? Harvard Business Review did a great article in 2008 during the real estate crisis on what kind of consumers there were. And they broke consumers down into 4 groups. They said there are the slam on the brake consumers. Those are the buyers who just say, oh my God, I can't deal with this, and they stop spending. Then they said there's the pained but patient consumers. Those are the ones who say, wow, this isn't very good. What am I going to do about it, and how am I going to think my way through this? The third group were the ones they called comfortable. Those are the people who have money in the bank, have revenue streams that have not changed, and theoretically are not going to change their behavior very much. And then the fourth group was the live for today folks. Those are the ones who say, damn the torpedoes. I don't care about what's going on. I'm going to continue to live the way I have always lived. Well, we know that the first group, the slam on the brakes, they're not consumers anymore. So they're off the table. We tend to think that the last group, the live for today group, are good opportunities. But the truth is, they're going to do something that doesn't fit in with what's going in the rest of the world. They're not going to last very long. So they're off the list. And we have to start looking at those 2 inside groups, the pained but patient and the comfortable. And we have to figure out how we can work with them to help sell our clients' products or services to them. It's the same for us if we are marketers or consultants. We just have to look at our clients as those consumers. The slam on the brakes, the pain but patient, the comfortable, and then the live for today's. We have to figure out who they are. We have to figure out what it is they need, and then we have to figure out how to best approach them. And we need to do it short term, medium term, and then of course, long term.
Awesome. Speaking of that, well, let me come back to the question, but before I go there, I would like to make sure we have time to answer people's questions. This is your opportunity to inquire, any perspective you want from Bruce, from your point of view. So please make sure that you're submitting your questions on the Zoom question section. And after this next comment, we'll turn it over to Monica, who's working on curating questions that are coming through and trying to group them into parcels that will enable us to try to hit on most of the topics that people are sending through. So this morning I was watching an interview on CNBC, I think it was on Squawk Box, with Steve Ballmer. Steve Ballmer was the former CEO. I think he was 13, 14 years CEO of Microsoft Corporation, very successful. And one of the things he talked about was the aspect of not just looking at the quarter results, but companies thinking about the good they're doing and other ways to measure their success in this environment. So you already talked a little bit about the short-term, long-term sort of thinking. But do you think that in the context of the environment that we're facing, that organizations will indeed make a change, a strategic change in a direction where they're looking at longer term strategies rather than the short-term strategy that we started talking about earlier on?
I think they have to. I don't see where they have a choice. I mean, you have to plug the leak in the boat if you're in a storm before you start plotting your course, right? Because if you plot your course in the lifeboat to get back to land, but the boat sinks before you get there, you didn't accomplish anything. So short term, shoring up your your issues is critical. You got to plug that boat, and then you can figure out where you're going to go. However, once you plug the boat enough, you don't have to make it perfect. You just have to plug it long enough to get you back to shore. Then you got to figure out how far away are we? What are we going to do about navigation? What are we going to do about food? What are we going to do about water? Well, that's where we are right now, if you think about it. We have to make the immediate changes, whether that change was sheltering in place, it was shifting our employees from a office-based environment to a home-based environment. It's figuring out how to use the technology. It's figuring out if your webcam works, if your laptop works, how to use Zoom, how to use WebEx, how to use Google Meetings. But once you figure all that out, then you need to start thinking medium term and long term. Because if you're only in fight or flight, if you're only in crisis response mode at all times, you're not going to build anything. You're going to put the fire out, but then you're going to live in ruins, to completely mix my metaphors. So Ballmer, dare I say, I'm the one to say Ballmer's correct, because clearly his performance experience proves that he's correct. But Ballmer's right. This is not going to go on forever. There are companies right now that are figuring out how to change who they are and what they do while staying true to their values and their brand value. There are companies right now that are making significant profits and doing significant amount of money, business rather, because they figured out what they need to do, not based on who they are, but based on who their customer is. And so they figured out what they need to do, short-term, medium-term, and long-term, in order to better serve their customer.
Excellent. Very, very insightful. And why don't we spend a little time with some of the questions that Monica has been putting together there. So, Moni, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Henry. Yes, we have great questions. Bruce, people would like to know, what are the don'ts of advertising during these times? In other words, what should brands steer clear from?
Great. That's a great question. What should brands steer clear from? Number one, do not get in price wars. People are not buying your products or services because of price. There's other reasons why they can't do business with you currently. But when things get strange, we all go to what we know, and we all know about lowering prices. The problem is, if you lower prices, not only do you further damage your bottom line, but when things change, improve, get better, you're not going to be able to move your prices back up, because your customer, your consumers are going to get used to paying the low price. So number one, do not allow yourselves to get into price wars. Number two, figure out which of your products or services are modifiable to fit the times and which of them are expendable. Because the products that you sell that people cannot or will not buy now, it doesn't matter what you do, they're not going to buy them or sell them. So trying to push them by lowering prices, by doing special offers, isn't going to matter. Whether it's travel or it's restaurants or whatever it is, you must understand which of your products fit the times and which of your products are expendable, and just simply do not spend time on those. And then number three, and probably most important, do not abandon your brand values. Your company stands for something. You stand for something. And when times are tough, it's so easy to throw that away. It's so easy to say, well, I can't afford to have values. What's that joke? Only a rich man has principle, can afford to have principles. It's not true. Because if you give up your brand value today, there's so many other choices for people to buy your products or services. So you must maintain who you are and why you matter. In fact, it's very likely that this is the perfect time to double down on your brand value, to double down on why you matter, to stand for something, because as I've said a number of times, right now, our customers, our consumers, our potential customers and consumers are looking for certainty in uncertain times. So now is the perfect time for you to say, this is who we are. This is what we stand for. This is why it matters to you. Please do not abandon your values for a quick sale.
And another question is, should you lower your price points on services or products to cater to the category of pain but patient customers that you described? Or is that more damaging to the brand or services long term?
That's a great question because there's a very subtle response. And the question was, just to be clear, should you lower your prices because the pain but patient are in pain and they might be willing to spend less, but will that damage you long term? I believe lowering your prices is a mistake. However, I don't think it's a mistake to give your customers more. I just don't want to see you lower the pricing and therefore the value statement on your core product, your core service, your core value. For example, there's a little restaurant near my house, and every Thursday and Sunday in the newspaper, way back when, there would be a coupon 2 for 1. And those coupons did not expire. They were for pretty much anything on the menu. And they were in the paper every Thursday and every Sunday. Now, I'm not a coupon clipper. However, after I went a couple times and I saw people paying 2 for 1, I thought, well, I'm kind of an idiot not to do that. So I started getting those coupons, and I would just keep them in my car. And if we stopped there, we'd go in and we'd get 2 for 1. But what happened was, originally, I was perfectly happy to pay the 1 for 1 price. But over time, I developed the habit of paying the 2 for 1 price. Well, that's bad enough. The restaurant just lost half of my business, even though I didn't decrease my ordering or my visits. But then at some point, they stopped running the ads. They stopped running the coupons. They were no longer available. I used up all the ones I had in my car. So you know what happened? I stopped going to the restaurant. The food hadn't changed, the product hadn't changed, but the value had changed. I was now used to paying half price. I wasn't willing to pay the greater price. The funny thing was, I was perfectly happy paying that price in the beginning. So my point is that if you think you need to lower pricing for the pained but patient, offer them something different. Offer them another service, another product, another way of doing business with you. I'm all in favor of giving them more in tough times. I'm not in favor of you lowering the value of your core product or service.
Bringing that, just to comment on that, bringing that directly back to our business. If you look at it from the perspective of television advertising, and in our case, focused on pay TV, or what we refer to as premium video advertising, you look at the indices, the audience increase indices that are occurring on a market by market basis throughout the region, anywhere between 18, 22, 24, 30%. And that's pretty consistent. It's holding pretty consistent over the course of the last 10, 12 weeks or so of tracking that we've been doing relative to the implications that, as Bruce was describing, people are at home more. Not only are we working from home, but our families are home, kids are being schooled at home, etc. So the audience indices are up. So if you take that to the point you're making in regards to holding your price points, and you look at it from the perspective that even with consistent media price points, because of the incremental audience delivery, the value that you're gaining is significantly higher. So it's a great opportunity from the standpoint of focusing not only on that critical holding your price point from the perspective of a marketer, but also from the standpoint of a great value-driven opportunity. Audiences are up, media pricing is relatively flat, so the value is much greater. And you then take that and look at it more on a long-term basis relative to brand building, as we've been discussing. And it will be so much harder for those organizations that have gone dark or that are holding back on media investments to then come back when the demand on media is greater and therefore the pricing on media increases, to then try to rebuild that brand value and rebuild that customer relation that you were talking about. So, it goes in line with your analogy here about the restaurant, but it flips it around. And it says, even for the same price point, you're getting significantly more. We're going to give you an extra scoop of, ice cream on top.
That's a great way to do it. You're getting everything you love and you're getting more, which adds value.
Excellent. And there's another question for the both of you. Should brands be focusing on getting back to normal or creating a new normal?
Henry, you want to go first?
Well, I think we've talked a little bit about this, and I think, look, to me, it's a matter of the opportunity to strengthen the brand and the opportunity to think long term. And, as we've discussed, to try to hold on price points so that we don't sacrifice. It's not about promotional driven. Let's cut prices down to the point that we can't even meet our profit margins. But it's more about the opportunity of driving a long-term brand value. So, I mean, Bruce, you're the expert at this, branding, focus. So, what's your thought on it?
Well, I think we need to come up with new nomenclature. I think we need to come up with a new way of talking about what's happened and what's going to happen. We are not going to get back to normal. Think about any great event in history and how you felt the day before. I mean, there's no surprise that in this country, 9/11 means something, right? It was the date of the attack on the World Trade Centers. We all know how we felt the day after 9/11, but none of us paid attention to or appreciated the day we felt before 9/11. In my life, March 15th of this year, I was in LA giving a talk, and that's when I came home. And so March 15th is when the coronavirus crisis really started to show me that things were changing. Well, I don't know how I felt on March 14th. So I think it's kind of silly to talk about getting back to normal. It's not going to happen. You're not going to feel comfortable going up to people and hugging and kissing them. You're not going to, that you don't know, I mean, you're not going to feel comfortable in big crowds or in restaurants. So then you say, well, how about the new normal? Seems to me that's an evolutionary process. What we know is things are going to change. And so what we also know is that we have to change who we are and what we do and how we run our businesses. However, we also have to remember that in uncertain times, people search for certainty. And true certainty comes from the core of who we are. It comes from our hearts, from our souls, from our upbringings, from our heritage, from our ancestry. We are who we are. Our customers buy that from us. And so instead of thinking about old normal or new normal, I think what we have to think about is how do I best take what I have and how do I put that in service of the people that I sell to so that they can be the best versions of themselves. And as the world opens up and as things improve and as things change, if we keep that in mind, it really gives us a game plan to move towards certainty.
Thank you, Bruce. And another one of our guests is asking for your advice. If a brand is damaged, what can they do to rebuild their values and their customer relations?
Well, that's a very important question right now because everybody's brand has been damaged, often by things that had nothing to do with them. If you run a tourist destination, for example, your brand has been damaged because people don't want to go there. They don't feel comfortable, not because of anything you did, but because they don't feel comfortable traveling. So the question becomes, how and why was your brand damaged? And that becomes very individual and very particular. In some cases, you need to jettison the brand and move on because what happened was so heinous that you can't outlive it. In other cases, you don't need to do that and you can rebuild. Think about, for example, what is Corona Beer going to do when their name is now seen as the name of a pandemic that's going to be with us now for the rest of human existence? You might remember there was a brand of candies called AIDS, which sounds funny when I say it now. It was AIDS. Well, it didn't really matter what AIDS candies did after the AIDS epidemic. They had to abandon that brand because there was no way to fix it. It was damaged beyond repair. The band Anthrax, when there was the anthrax attacks, they considered changing their name to Basket of Kittens. Of course, anthrax was a poison that killed people, and the band Anthrax played hard rock music that at least deafened you, so maybe there was some synergy for the brand. So I think it's a much deeper evaluation and response than simply, my brand is damaged, what do I do? But I will say that it really depends on if what you the damage can be overcome, or if in fact it's so systemic, it's so intrinsic in who you are and what you do, that it doesn't matter what you do.
Isn't it also a factor as it relates to what is the strength of your brand in advance? What is the awareness and the intricate value that people place on that particular brand? So, you know, in the case of Corona Beer, going back to that, you know, I don't think they've been opportunistic in any way, shape, or form. They could have been, but they haven't been. And that said, my feeling is that that's a brand that's so strong that it's not like the anthrax situation or the AIDS candy situation, which I never even heard of. But it's more about, you know, they have a proposition that they've been marketing for a long time in very consistent fashion. So I don't know if you disagree with this, but it seems to me like in this particular case, so long as they don't try to somehow take advantage of the situation, that they're going to be in a good position and that their brand won't be hurt. And there's no way that they need to be changing their name to, what is it, a litter of kitties or basket of kitties?
Basket of kittens. No, I think you're right. They have done the right job, and they have built a brand based on being on the beach, relaxing, which the meta message is you should feel good. Drinking our product, drinking our beer will make you feel good, which is what we all need right now. I mean, if you check into a hotel and it's a hotel you don't think much of, and then you go in the room and there's a bug on the bed, you're going to be grossed out and horrified, and it's going to hurt the brand. If you check into one of the high levels, and I don't want to use names because I don't want to suggest that this happened, but you know the brand's the quality, the highest levels, and there's a bug there, what do you say? Wow, that must be an aberration. That's an anomaly. That just doesn't happen here. And you allow, you know, they have to do something to fix your experience, but the brand is stronger than your experience. And I agree with you. The Corona's done a very good job of building and establishing their brand. We'll wait and see what happens. Specifically to the person who wrote the question, I don't know, because I don't know the brand. I don't know the issue. I don't know what happened.
Well, those are all the questions that we have, and I'll turn it back to you.
Well, thank you very much, Monica and Bruce. Just being respectful of the time. We're up at the just past the 45-minute timeline that we allocated for the webinar. So I want to thank our audience for sticking with us. And Bruce, well, thank you very much. I don't know if there's any last word of wisdom that you want to leave us with, but thanks very much for joining us.
I would add that, hang on just one sec, there we go. Rahm Emanuel, the mayor of Chicago, and before him, Winston Churchill, we all know who Winston Churchill is, said, it's a shame to waste a perfectly good crisis. I'm not suggesting that there aren't horrible things going on that we all have to worry about, be sad about, and be sympathetic about. All I'm suggesting is that we are going to come out of this in a new way, looking for new answers and new opportunities. And so if there's things you've been waiting to do, now's the time to do them. I would add also, if you had a list of things you wanted to do, whether it's redo your brand, fix your website, or clean your closet, but you always said, but I just don't have the time. If you haven't done it yet, you're probably not going to do it. So I think you can cross it off the list. But this is the perfect opportunity to make a change. It's the perfect opportunity to spend some real time thinking about your business and your brand and how you can better serve the world. If I can help you do it, again, togetherwithturkel.com, check it out, and I'd be happy to help. You can always send me an email. You can always ask me a question, but really it's your opportunity. At some point, we all have to say, this is the hand we've been dealt. Now, what are we going to do with it? And I believe if we do that properly, we can thrive and we can prosper.
Thank you very much, Bruce, and thank you so much, Henry, for a really insightful conversation. Thank you to everybody who joined. I want to remind you that you can watch this session and our past session via our website, and we'll see you in the next one. Stay safe, everyone. Thank you.